Welcome to the Book of Balance podcast, where real stories meet real numbers. I'm your host, Patricia Oholeguy, your bookkeeper and believer that business should serve your life, not consume it. Each week, we sit down with entrepreneurs who've built their dreams from scratch and learned to balance their books, their boundaries, and their energy along the way. Ready to turn the page on financial stress and write your own story of clarity? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Book of Balance podcast. I am Patricia Oholeguy, and today I'm super excited because I have Blessing Santoro here with us, and she's going to tell us all about her Book of Balance podcast. I am Patricia Oholeguy, and today I'm super excited because I have Blessing Santoro here with us, and she's going to tell us all about her journey and about her small business. And so when I read her story, it sounded very interesting. I was like, oh, wow, I really need to understand it. When I went to her website, I was like, okay, now we got to talk because I have so many questions for you, but I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us more about who you are and how you got here. So welcome,
For
welcome.
sure. Oh, thank you so much for having me, Patricia. This is already so much fun. But about me, my name's Blessing Santoro. I am a messaging and marketing strategist. The long story short of how I got here is really I came from finance and it just wasn't a place for me. Not that I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing, it just felt like I could only operate in one side of my brain, this very technical, logical self. So it was kind of a little bit of a hardship in that moment because I had gotten my degree in this. So I left finance and I went to, well, all right, what's adjacent to business if it's not finance, but it's something creative, and immediately found marketing. It was just kind of the obvious next step. And just by chance, I started putting myself out there as a marketing manager, got hired by a real estate company because I figured, well, that's still kind of close to finance. I can be in both worlds at the same
Right.
time. I turned into the marketing manager for that finance for that real estate company. And I was like, you know what? I could do this for more small business owners on the side. So I did. And I became a freelancer while working in the business. And I was like, you know what? This is kind of everything I want to do. I think I'm fully done with finance. And so at that point, probably this was already around maybe 3 years into my journey, COVID hit. I was like, all right, well, now I'm a full-time freelancer. And the way the world works and the way that life is just so beautiful, I got picked up by an agency at the same time that I got let go of the real estate
Oh,
company.
wow.
It was
Really?
just like confirmation that
Talk
I was
about
in the right
synchronicity.
place.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And God is just so good that it was just like on a silver platter for me. So I started working in this agency, and beyond just being in marketing, kind of helping out with like putting posts together, doing Instagram for clients, I really got the opportunity to serve as a lead brand consultant. So I was seeing brands go from, small mom and pop to like full big name rebranded with a website and really sit into the essence of who they've always wanted to be and how they've always wanted to look. And that led me to just some crazy projects with, healthcare conglomerates, all these different.
Wow. That sounds so
Yeah,
much fun.
it was just such a great exposure in that experience, but I still was freelancing on the side. Because, as over the years, I had just met such this wonderful community of women entrepreneurs that I couldn't let it go. There was just so many amazing women that I was meeting, and they needed the same thing. They had their own small businesses that needed to be shaped and loved on so that they could
Yeah.
embody everything that they knew they could be. And so I built my business at the same time of working in this industry for like 7 years, and the process was just amazing. I still have a partnership and work with the agency every now and then, but it really solidified my mission for my business that I want to be in business to help women better communicate who they are and what they do so that they can build the wealth and impact that they've always dreamed of. That's the whole dream.
That's great. So clearly you worked, well, I work in finance clearly because I do bookkeeping and I've done many other careers prior to deciding to go into book. So my life is a little backwards. Like I was very creative when I worked in early childhood and I was at home
Okay.
daycare. So there's a lot of creativity, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of arts and craft and fun stuff. And now as I've gotten older, it's almost like I want to have a quieter, simple life. A number sounds like a great thing. And I've always been very good with numbers. So, and I'm enjoying the challenge. And I like the pace of having a quieter life. So it's funny that I kind of went backwards from you, but I want to kind of reiterate how you share that you studied finance, right? That was your background.
Yep.
And many of us, we study something, we go into it, and then we realize that perhaps our calling is completely different from what we thought it was going to be. And I think there's something very important here that we need to understand about us as people in this planet, that we are not necessarily stuck on something that we thought we had to do. Sometimes, we may come, I was a teacher, right? And so is that my identity? Because I became a special education teacher many moons back, or am I Patricia first?
Yeah.
And then I'm an educator and I love numbers. And because I ran a business for 20 years and I did all my bookkeeping, so I'm very confident and I started helping other people with. I delved into real estate about 5 years ago. And so I started helping other investors with their bookkeeping. And that's when I realized, okay, this is my thing. But I think it's important to remind everyone that sometimes life takes you in places you have no idea, because you said you got laid off, and right at the, I mean, because honestly, what if you would not have gotten laid off and that opportunity would have not come your way? That would have made it a lot harder for you to really
Absolutely.
finalize your identity as the new, would you say content creator? No, you're a marketing person. So you create content, but
Yeah,
it's from a
marketing strategy.
marketing perspective. So I think that's just such a wonderful evolution that you have been able to do as a person. Have you had any challenges that you feel that really made you question some of the decisions you have made as you
Oh,
left the workforce 9 to 5 sort of schedule?
Oh, absolutely. And you brought it up right then. That transition between the real estate and into the agency. I mean, the opportunity was there and it was and I could run right into it, but I did come with a pay cut. So I was working a second, third job. So I was freelancing, working with this agency and doing whatever I could to still make ends meet. And of course, it made me question was this the right move? You went to school to study finance. You were supposed to go to Wall Street, that whole vision. And now
Right.
you're you're serving tables on the weekend. What are we doing? But there was nothing, and I really have to give a lot of credit to the clients that I worked with. They poured into me so much and every time that I was working with them that it made me want to stay and keep going and give it a shot. I mean, I had clients who were telling me, "Blessing, I really want to work with you, but I want you to raise your price. Come back to me with a better price, higher one, something that you feel scary to tell me." I mean, I couldn't have asked for better clients who basically became mentors to me at the same time. And that is what kept me in the game because I was like, all right, if I have to bust tables and make it work to make it happen, I'll do it because this is the room or this is the community that I want to be in. People
Right.
who love on me this way so freely. I would never go back.
You said something that maybe you can help me figure this out.
Yeah.
Because you said you had clients that helped you grow and that helped you become the
Evolve.
entrepreneur you evolve as an entrepreneur. And we may have listeners that might feel, "Oh, well, she just was lucky, or well, maybe she was just at the right time at the right place." And I want us to talk about a little bit more about how we don't realize how our disposition, the way we kind of come across to people, the energy that we give through really makes a difference on the way people will treat us and take care of us and help us. It's almost like it has to flow back. And so that's what I believe, right? So the fact that you tell me I had all these wonderful clients that really helped me, I'm thinking, okay, well, you unintentionally set the stage to have clients that were grateful to the services you provide that encourage you to increase your prices. But you have to also give yourself credit, I think, and we don't do that as human beings in general, that
Mhm.
you had half of that input to create the output that you got. You see what I'm saying? It's not all
Absolutely.
your clients. It was almost
Yeah.
like you had something in you which you haven't had a chance to maybe think about what is it that we bring to the table as the business owner when we're talking to clients for the clients to want to pour back to us. And I think
Oh,
that
okay.
is a key aspect that we forget. And if we have people who are thinking about starting a business or they're in the middle of a business and they're struggling, go back and think about the energy you bring to the table when you're trying to get clients. I am part of another group of bookkeepers that we meet once a week and we talk about how to grow professionally. And one of them, I bless his soul, I love him, but I can see that he's trying so hard to invite clients into his business circle, basically, that I think he's too eager. And it
Mhm.
almost reminded me of that guy that keeps asking you to go out, that he's just trying too hard and almost like it turns you off that you don't want to go on a date anymore because they're just asking. You can tell that they're so desperate to go on just a date and they just kind of get awkward. And I don't know if this gentleman realized that he was kind of exuding that energy as a business owner.
Mm.
And I think that is something that we need to remember. The energy we give out is going to come back in. And when you keep telling me I feel so fortunate, I'm thinking, man, she has great energy. She's not even realizing it. Because think about it,
I
you had
appreciate
people
it.
that were encouraging you to increase your prices.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it
I will.
starts, but you were probably already thinking about it. You were just not visual, verbalizing it, but probably you already had that mindset and people could see it in you.
I really appreciate that. And with the work that I do specific to messaging, it is kind of inherent part of the process where we do have to face ourselves in order to communicate externally. We have to have that conversation internally first. So it is it's always a challenge to do what you do for others that you do for yourself. So I totally hear you recognizing my own energy and what I pour into my clients. That's a lifelong journey, but the work that I do with my clients in helping them develop messaging and really just communicate, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's why it's amazing, right? There's a lot of discovery that we have to go through. One of the exercises I take my clients through a lot is like, I call it a mirror, because we do have to sit and say and look at, okay, here's the glory of everything that I do, and accept it before we can really translate it into content, into a reel or whatever it may be, a sales page. And I think that's a step that gets skipped so often because we go through not only so many changes that we don't sit back and realize how far we've come, but also we just are all constantly pouring out, pouring out. We don't take that second to just reflect and look back in.
Right. So sounds like and I think we all, I think we're guilty of it. It comes to the point in which we have to create content and
Mhm.
there's no time to really put thought into what's the purpose of the content or what's the mission of the content and how do I want. And so I
Mhm.
think you see a lot of that out there. So it's just content out there that it has no clear, specific purpose. Person who might be interested in either looking for your services or purchasing your product, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So how would you say that you are really able to help the clients? What's the process?
Yeah. So with my clients, I always start with messaging. The approach that I take is, before we can create stuff that people can see, we have to know what your identity is to start with. So I like to think of it like a ripple. There's the inner ring here, and that's your message. And then that message gets shared out through this larger ring, which is your marketing system. So that's how, you show up on Facebook, maybe you show up on TikTok, whatever it may be. You share that message out through that system. And then the last piece is your content. The content is what the rest of the world actually interacts with. But at its core, it's who you are. So until we can get that core solidified, it's going to be really hard to do anything else. That's why I start with messaging with my clients. And really, what that looks like is, how can I help them better communicate what their offer is going to do for somebody else, right? But again, the biggest gap that I see with clients is they haven't seen it clearly enough themselves. They're so stuck in the technical. I help pull them out of the technical and to say, okay, this is
Oh,
actually what
interesting.
you really do. There was one client I worked with. She works in the space of helping clients kind of with their operations. Let's put it that way. She works with them through their operations so that anybody who comes in has a smooth experience with that person, right? But I challenged her to see it from a different perspective. You're not just helping someone with their systems, you're creating an avenue for retention, for renewal, for all these different ways for that business owner themselves to see cash flow consistently because the more people who have great experiences, the more return that they're getting on that initial investment, right? So it's taking them away from the technical things that they do to seeing the bigger, greater result, the thing that their audience actually wants and cares about. So that's the first step before we can even talk about TikTok or
Do you
Reels or
see how
anything.
finance came through it without even you
Oh,
realizing?
absolutely. I was sharing with a friend the other day. I was like, content finance taught me strategy, content
Yes.
helped me get do creativity, something along those lines.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right, because when you're talking, I think that's why you don't realize how much it helps you talking to clients, but having the finance background, it
Oh,
absolutely gives
absolutely.
you this financial strategy on how does this help your business sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's important for us, whether service providers or creative entrepreneurs. I mean, for me, this is myself very much included. Have tended to steer away from the conversation of finance because I want my clients to come in not because they want the 10K month, but because they really want the transformation. Absolutely, that is part of it, but it's also remembering that that financial piece doesn't have to be a negative or it doesn't have to be bad.
Correct.
It can be
Correct.
very much this is that piece, that the financial piece is how they continue to do and bless others through
Right.
through what
Without
they
that, they
do.
don't have a business. It's
Without it, they
remain
don't have
open.
a
Yes. You
business.
kind of need.
Exactly.
Yeah, you need that piece.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm like, there is two schools of thoughts regarding finance. You have people who live and breathe it and believe that that's all there is, to the point that some people may even take it too hard, and maybe the word greed can come around, a little bit. But then
Absolutely.
you have other people who, because they're so afraid of the fear of the concept of greed, stay away from finance and numbers so far out that they're on the other opposite end, to the point that they're not fully aware of
Mhm.
their own situation financially, and therefore that hinders them from growing their business. And I think you need to have the ability to balance all of these plates, and the financial aspect is one of them, because if you do have a business that doesn't have enough cash flow to keep paying, I'm just going to say like silly things like Zoom, your
Yeah.
email account, your lights, the cable, the internet, the cell phone, all these bills that come. I mean, you need to have the cash flow to comfortably be able to run the company, and be able to focus on your clients. And there's some businesses and people that, they struggle with those aspects, but that's when you need to lean into the financial piece to then be able to have the creativity. So it's almost like you can't have one without the other. Because let's say you're
Absolutely.
really good with the finance piece. I'm a pro, I'm a genius, right? Like numbers are my thing. But if you don't have the ability to let the world know you exist, then you are going to be the biggest hidden secret out there for a long
Yes.
time. And so that's not necessarily why we're here. We're here because we want to help other people, and this is why we open a business, because we want to be, not only help but also be successful. So that is the biggest challenge, I think, as small business owners we have, wearing those two hats and knowing
Mhm.
when to take one off and when to put the other.
I was just sharing, I think one of the biggest challenges that we can have as small business owners is feeling so empowered when we're doing great and we're getting all the referrals, and it's like, oh wow, this has never been easier. And then we hit that moment where there's when those referrals dry up, and you're like, oh snap. No one else other than the people around me know who I am, what I do. I mean, maybe I haven't posted on Instagram in a year. Maybe I don't even have a website. Not saying that you need all of those different pieces, but it's about having some sort of flow so that
Right.
whenever those referrals are not necessarily there, you have that stability, you have that consistency, you have predictability and control in something that you rely on, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think, again, in business, we talk about it as diversifying your sources of income, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I think these days, if you're a small business owner, you have to diversify your sources of leads, such as social media
Exactly.
being one of them. Instagram could be another one. It depends on what you're in. It's like,
Hmm.
but that's all diversification of leads. And we need lead generation to be able to then funnel them into becoming clients. I mean, we're in the business, we have a business, we have to,
Yes.
I mean, it is what it is. We want to help people, but I mean, I'm not a charity. I would like to be charity, but I'm not. I can't. I'm not there yet. So I think those are all important aspects in a business. And, you share that you kind of feel like the finance gave you the foundation you did not realize that is benefiting today. Then you felt like you were missing that creative spark, so you got the opportunity to start delving and exploring into it, and then you kind of slowly were blending them to the point in which then creativity became like 80% and finance became your 20, until you eventually were able to fully focus on being a marketing and strategy advisor, because it sounds like you're
Mhm.
advising a lot of entrepreneurs on how to better position themselves in the market.
100%. I came out of doing specifically copywriting, so it was more done for you, so very much a service provider. And that evolution itself, moving from service provider into more of a consultant, that came with its own realizations and shifts for my business. But the piece that really inclined me to take that change instead of just doing it for my clients was that bigger picture view, right? It's very easy. Well, I wouldn't say it's very easy. The creating something for you to post online, that as a deliverable, it's pretty straightforward, right? But if you don't have a way to share that or to monetize that, then I've kind of left you with a very expensive Google document. And it was very frustrating to see that happen again and again with clients as well. I'll go through the process, write their whole website, but because perhaps they didn't have an opportunity to fully develop it or follow through or bring in clients to fund that project, that Google document with all the nice words written on it never turned into a website or never turned into a sales page. So I shifted because I was like, okay, there's more than just a writing gap that's happening here. It's more of a holistic gap. There is
Right.
the positioning piece, there's the marketing piece, there's also the sales piece. So I'm like, all right, we got to step back and see how we can actually serve people so that they can do more than just have the deliverable, but they can actually see the result come out of it.
Right. And so the more I listen to you, Blessing, the more I want to remind our listeners that you had no idea this is where your business career was going to
Oh,
take. So this is where, some people go into a business with a specific idea, and then and that's okay. You need an idea to get going. You need that idea to get you going, to get you through the tough periods. But be open and don't be surprised. I guess that's the better word. If you find that 5 years from now, your business is completely different from what you thought it
mhm,
was going to be when you got started. So I think we all need to give ourselves permission to that, and to
yeah,
realize that when you give yourself an opportunity to become a small business owner, you're giving yourself an opportunity to discover something you had no idea it even existed. And you're not going to know until you actually get yourself through the process of it. It's not like I dream about this business, and I still work in the 9 to 5, and you have it all perfectly planned, and it's not going to be beautiful. You might find challenges on the way, and you're going to have to adjust. And I can share like something very easy. I'm a bookkeeper, and it's very simple. I look at your books, I look at your accounts, I balance them out. And usually we start charging a minimum of $300, and that's really low for small business owners. And we can charge up to 800, even if it depends how big of a company you have.
yeah,
But honestly, does a $100,000 income company afford a bookkeeper? Not really. But there's a lot of people that still need that financial support. So I had no idea when I started 5 years ago that I was going to shift my own perception and how I was going to run my business. But now I'm here, and I've been talking to a lot of people, and I see a lot of small business owners that are between the 100 and 200,000 bracket, that they may not be fully ready to, to give, because a budget is a budget, and we only can do
yeah,
so much in a month with whatever we make. But they still need help with their books to then be able to go from 100 to 200. How do you make that leap?
exactly.
How do you manage your money? So there is a niche there for us to create a program that I actually have launched, that is called the Clarity Compass Method, in which we have a monthly program in which people who own a business can come and ask for advice on how to do their own books. The first thing is it gives you accountability, because you have to show up every week so we can work on this together. The second thing is you're able to, ask questions, and you can function independently without having to allocate so much resources while you grow. So that is something that I learned from being a small business owner and from working with as a bookkeeper. And my point is, as a business owner, you go in with an idea of this is what I'm going to do. But then you go in and you see that there's other needs that you might have not predicted in the past. And not until you start talking to people, you realize, wait, what about this? What about that? And then it's up to you if you want to be creative and help them or not, or if you just want to be like, nope, I just want to be the white glove experience for those clients. Great. But to me, it's almost like I have a social worker bleeding heart and I like to help people. So I said, I'm like, no, how do they make it from 100 to 200 if they don't have the support and the guidance on how to learn how to read those numbers? If we don't have the numbers right, it's going to be really hard. You can make it, but it's going to be a lot harder. So I think that's an example that, and like you said, you also are finding what works and what they need. You were creating a Google Doc, but it was not going as many places as it could have. Maybe they presented it at one time for
Mhm.
whatever proposal they were doing, and then it just sat on that computer. And you're thinking, but there's other things you could have been doing with this document. You could have presented it here and there, and adapted for this, adapted for that. And sometimes, we need outside support to help us continue to grow strategically. And it sounds like you are providing that based on a need that you saw, right? But it's not
Absolutely.
like you went in saying like, oh, I'm going to be a strategic person with marketing. So I just want to remind all of our listeners about how sometimes you have to give permission for life and for your business to lead you on the direction that your business is going to be successful in.
100%. Something that that happens when I'm working with my clients is like, oh my gosh, I wish I had done this earlier. I wish I had started with messaging or some aspect of what we're working on at the very start of my business. And I always try to remind them, like, even if you started with this, you were meant to grow and change. So that message you had back then was going to change and shift. That offer that you created a website for back then, it was going to change and shift by the time you got to today anyway, because it's supposed to. If you're not growing, that's not success, right?
I change it every week. When I started
Exactly.
with Clarity Compass, I think I changed the colors like 5 times in the first 2 months that I was still designing this in my head. And then I was like, no, I'm changing the colors now. I was like, no, I'm changing it. But because you have to create it in your head, and as you keep
Exactly.
growing and filling your shoes into that new role, things keep changing. And then you go in, and then 6 months later, it might continue to change. But it has to be, again, no one's static. Humans are not static.
Mhm.
And therefore, we need to be open to change. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I want to remind people, and I always go back to early childhood because I own a daycare for 20 years. The parents today are not the same from 20 years ago. And I don't mean it in a bad way or a good way. It's just we're different. We're a different generation and we see things differently because we keep evolving as human beings.
Mhm.
So if our children's parenting style is different from ours because they continue to evolve like we parent in a different way from our parents, we have to remember that that is not just for parenting. That is just who we are as people. The way we did business 20 years ago doesn't work. Glamour shots doesn't even exist anymore. And I don't even know if you even were born. Glamour shows is what you did in the mall back in the early 90s. And you go with
Oh
your
my
girlfriends
gosh.
and go take pictures with your girlfriends.
I,
And then you will print them
JC
out and
Penney.
hand them out. Exactly. But it was fancier than JC Penney. It was glamour shots. And you will kind of like go with your girlfriends and you will like do a whole shooting of pictures. And then you will buy a package. And then it was like all your girlfriends and you and this, and you will hand them out to your friends.
Oh, I
So
love that.
again, it's funny, but I mean, that was a market that is,
Mhm.
it doesn't work anymore. So there's some trends that and I think we need to also remember that we need to keep up with those trends because
Yeah,
Glamour is not here. Blockbuster is no longer here. So these and there was nothing. They were very great. They were incredible businesses when they were here, and they did well. But we evolved. Technology changed. We changed. The way we live changed, and therefore we have to make room for something new. So we need to continue to find a way to change. And I think your role is so important for businesses to continue to change because we kind of get set in our ways.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I see with business owners, and I think it's universal, is we don't know when change makes sense. And I think the number one way to kind of like at least get a gauge for it is to start tracking. If you start tracking a strategy that's working and whether it's not working, simple as like how many calls am I booking a week, or is my website even bringing me any traffic? Just using data, right? The finance
But
aspect.
for sure, yeah, sales are dropping. I'm doing, and that's people just. I don't know why it's not working. I've been doing this for 20 years, right? And I always, and it's almost like, well, that's why it's not working because it's been 20 years.
Yeah, and it's seeing and using the data to see, okay, perhaps when did that shift start happening? What could have been happening around that time, right? Even as something as simple as your posts.
There you
What
go.
post let's say you had a post that went viral and you have all these amazing, you know, views on it, but the next one doesn't do that. Okay, now it's time to gauge, all right, so this one did really well. What about it went really well? So I would say for when it comes to strategy, it's really leaning on your data so that you can get a better gauge of when change makes sense and when it's time to allow things to sit and simmer and evolve versus, all right, I need to burn it all down and, change it all up.
Okay. So then, as a takeaway, so as we're talking to small business owners who may be looking into, they're either currently running a business or might be struggling with a strategy, or they're seeing that, the market is shifting. We've had the economy is very different this year from 2 or 3 years ago. COVID was an anomaly and it changed
Mhm,
everything. And then COVID
for
left.
sure.
And now here we are with all of this political um term. I don't know how you want to call it, but it's just we're in a different climate.
Different.
It's a
Yeah,
very different political
absolutely.
climate. I don't want to talk about it, but it is a different political climate, and people are responding in the best way they know how, based on how they feel personally. So knowing that we have all these external things that are changing how customer behaviors, what suggestions would you have for small business owners today, as a takeaway from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I would say whatever strategy you're trying right now, again, as much as you can look at the data behind it to get a gauge of what's working, what's not working, right? That's going to give you a sense of from a technical perspective. But from the market itself, my biggest piece of advice that I always give is if you can just ask questions, ask the why as many times as you need to, it's going to tell you more in 5 minutes than in 5 weeks, right? If I can just ask a client that I got on a call on who didn't sign up with me, hey, do you mind me asking why you said no? It could be a million different reasons for that person why she said no. It could have been just, "You have no idea how bad of a headache I had that day. I was in a terrible mood." It could have just been that. It
Right,
also could have been, "Hey, situationally, there's something really,
right,
affecting my family financially."
right.
But the sooner you find out the why, the sooner you can say, "Okay, great. I have my data now. I can make the shift if I need to." Or everything I said was on point. I just need to tweak. I need to make an improvement, not throw the offer out, throw
Right,
everything
exactly,
out.
exactly. Yeah. So like, yeah, like, and again, and sometimes, I mean, when you make those calls, I find out something like, oh, it's almost like they still want to work with you, but they want to try one more thing before they hire you. So you know what that means? I have to call them every month now and just check in, because it's almost like I'm thinking, oh, okay, so that doesn't mean that they. I'm like, this is. I'm like, this is great news to me, because I'm thinking it's still a warm lead, but you would have not known if you hadn't asked the
The
why or what's
question.
going on. Is there any feedback? But once you ask. And now I know it's like, oh, this is great. To me, it was great information. And again, if they say something that you don't necessarily want to hear, well, run it through ChatGPT if you don't want to take it so personal. But you have to look into that, because sometimes, again, you could have had a bad day that day, and maybe
Exactly.
you didn't present yourself in the best foot forward, and therefore that might have impacted your sale. So therefore, if you understand that about you, then maybe you next time you're going to treat yourself with the most delicious snack right before that call. That way you have the best attitude ever, and to kind of change, like, again, the energy, right? Like, so sometimes we have to do what we can in our end to make the experience for the other client positive, but the feedback, I think you're right, can make a world of a difference. And it's not always going to
Yeah,
be negative. That was my point. It's like,
exactly.
again, for those who are we still are trying to gain confidence. And so sometimes asking for feedback, we're terrified because we're afraid of they're going to point out our things that we're not so good
Yeah.
at. But don't be afraid, because more than likely you're going to get feedback of like, oh, we're just not ready for this, nothing to do with you. And it's going to make you realize that it's not that you're not doing your job, but rather there's other external things that are out of your control that is making the decision for you, not that they don't want to work with you. That's also going to help you as a
Awesome.
business owner to gain confidence. Then you're going to do well, because I think that's the other culprit. You don't get the client, you think you didn't do a good job, I didn't sell it, I didn't close it, and your mind goes to a place it shouldn't be. But when you ask the why, most of the time it's not necessarily you, it's rather there's other circumstances that the clients have to go through that you didn't know.
Yeah, I think part of it too is understanding that everything we do in terms of marketing is to support people making a good decision, right? Whether it's a yes for them because it's right for them, or
Right.
supporting no for them because it is wrong for them, right? And our content, or whether it's your website, your social media content, whatever it is just to give them the information to support them making that decision on their own with total confidence. So that by the time they do get on a call with you, they kind of already have a gist of what it is that you do, why it works, and how it relates to them. At that point, you can just have a very open conversation. Hey, this is the nitty gritty of it, or here's the pricing of it. I mean, I there was one client I got on a call with. Well, she wasn't a client at the time. I got on a call with her, and it didn't seem like a great fit at first. And so I reached out afterward and I was like, "Hey, would you just mind letting me know, what could have helped you say yes?" And she was like, "Well, really, you were talking about this, but I don't really need help with that. I thought I did, but I actually want to work on this." That was actually something I had a different offer for, but I didn't mention to her on that call. So when I explained it to her, then she signed up for that bigger package, this different offer. But there was just something that I didn't know that happened on that call that really shifted everything. So I think it's two parts. One, understanding how what we do before a call supports people
Mhm.
making that decision, but also what we do afterwards, and making sure that people feel supported no matter what.
Right. Right. And that too. I mean, the fact that the client now knows that if, that you're going to reach out to them, it also gives them confidence that they're going to be heard. Right. Because now it's like, oh, well, my opinion matters. She actually called me. She wants to know that I'm okay. And that is a big thing that a lot of people, we all want to be heard. When we're in a
Sure.
relationship, we complain like, well, he didn't hear me. Like I told him, he didn't hear me. Like he want to hear out the other. I mean, that's the biggest complaint we have. We're not heard, right? Children complain because they're not heard. We're in a relationship, we're not heard. Like our boss doesn't listen to us. No one listens. So, I mean, when a client feels heard, then you have half of the battle right there. And then if your package speaks to what their need is, then it's going to be a much easier client for you to close on. And again, I mean, you're here to provide a service, but you do have to close a sale. So, but I do love the fact that you are helping people with the marketing, because I have a master's degree in business administration myself, and I have a emphasis in marketing, because I believe that without marketing, you don't, I mean, doesn't matter what great of a product you have, people may not ever know that the product even exists. So I
Yep.
think marketing is such an important piece in life. And I think even when we dress and, when we're going out, like I think marketing is everything's presentation, is your outfit, your haircut. Is like we don't realize it, but that people are looking at us every moment, and for better or for worse, they're making a prediction of who they think that we are based on the way they see us. And it's all marketing. We don't
Yeah. And
realize, but
I
it's all marketing.
Absolutely. And I think the better we get at knowing ourselves, and the better we get at being able to share that with the world, the easier it is for the right people to come and see us, because we have shared it so clearly, right? At that point, it's very obvious who you are, what you stand for, what you do. And all of those things are very clear, straight out, down to your brand colors, even, right? That just attracts the right people into
Right.
your world, where the
That's true.
conversation, it becomes a different conversation at that point. It's not me trying to chase and convince and hustle for clients. It's just I'm here doing what I do best, and it's obvious, and the right people, they get it and they come
That's very true. That's true, because I mean, I'm the only girl in the house, and I love to buy girly stuff. So, like, of course, and whenever I see a website that is very girly, I dig it, right? But I'm a bookkeeper, and I serve all kinds of clients, construction, real estate. So I keep a very neutral brand because the clientele that works with me is a lot broader. But I would love to have pink and bows everywhere. But not everybody's going to relate to that. So I try to be very sensitive to that aspect. But I think, like you speak, but again, you have to be cognizant of what type of brand and style you have because that's the people
Exactly.
you're going to attract, right? And the last thing I
Absolutely.
want to do is when I have some of my big clients who are real estate investors to go into my website and see pink and bows, and they may not relate to that because they're in construction and they just have a different. So I try to be very thoughtful of that. So I think for all of us that are thinking of business and marketing, think about what is that you love, but also think about what is that you want to, what is that you're selling or giving or providing, and who is also your market, right? Like I had a website for childcare and I was doing infant care. So we know that for infants, the best thing is primary colors, bright colors. But I also know that parents, when they do their nursery room, they use pastel colors,
Yeah.
right? So my website had pastel colors because my audience was not the child, right?
Yep.
It was the parent that was going to put the child into the daycare. And then, of course, in the daycare had the right colors for the child to stimulate growth, blah, blah, blah. But the website had to reflect what the parent felt.
Hmm. Yeah, your end user, the person
Yes,
who's
there
actually
we
gonna
go.
buy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But I could talk for hours about marketing. That is my favorite thing. So,
Same
final
here.
thought for those out there. And again, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So I would say the big thing is the more clarity you build in who you are and what you do, the easier it is to pretty much do everything else in your business, whether it's just get on a podcast and talk about it with
And
amazing
so, and if
entrepreneurs.
we are still confused because we love it, but we haven't figured out how to express it, how can we reach you so you can help us have a clear
Absolutely.
message?
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook. I am BlissWorks Brands. I'm also on Instagram, but my website, BlissWorks Brands, on there, I have trainings. Woo, I have maybe 40 different trainings, all talking about marketing, messaging, all these different things. So if you guys want to just check those out, those are free and available for
Okay,
you.
so you said
And
it's
also
Blessings Brand, right?
BlissWorks Brands. That's the name of my
Blit.
business. Yeah, so my name is Blessing, but instead of using Blessing, I use Bliss.
Okay.
So it is BlissWorks Brands.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Wonderful. So thank you again, Blessings, for coming today and sharing about your company. This is just another example of another entrepreneurial spirit that started in finance and found her way into marketing and then led her to strategy and helping companies really create a clear, concise brand so they have a more um, clear message and the way their marketing is more strategic. So thank you again, Blessings, for joining us today. And for all of you, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of the Book of Balance podcast. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the insights we shared. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss a future episode. And as promised during the show, you'll also find a link in the description with today's guest information, website links, and all the mentions we talked about during the episode. And if you're a do-it-yourself entrepreneur, you can join the Clarity Compass method at claritycompassllc.com. It's a monthly subscription where business owners like you dedicate just 1 hour each week to work in their books, get their questions answered, and stay consistent with their support of a community committed to financial clarity. Now, if you'd like to connect with me personally, head on to my website, oholeguy.com, to schedule your complimentary 15-minute consultation. It's the perfect way to get your personalized bookkeeping questions answered and explore how the white glove services can support your business. And on the last note, remember, we are not lawyers or financial advisors. Everything shared here reflects our professional opinions and is provided solely for educational purposes and entertainment purposes only. So thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep your compass set on clarity.